Hey, welcome back to another exciting tutorial. Today we're covering Refine Edge, creating an alpha channel so that we can place this in 3D and create the most epic plant ever, because you would want to. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, let's start from the beginning. So we're going to start with our bay leaf for practice. We're going to go in our layers here. We'll unlock this layer, and we can go ahead and call this bay leaf. What you're going to do is we're going to cover the automatic selection tools. The reason why I don't really cover this earlier is because typically when people first learn about the quick selection tool and the magic wand, they tend to want to use it for everything, and then they don't use the lasso tool when they should. And then they also don't use Refine Edge, which is up here at the top right here. So just because they're automatic doesn't mean they actually function properly, right? You've got to tweak it. So quick selection tool, you can select, plus or minus selection. You can hover your mouse over to see what those are, change your brush size. And essentially what you do is you click and drag, and you can select an area by color. So if I clicked in here, see, I'm just adding to my selection, so I'd have to start all over. So now I could do add to my selection, and I could drag around here to select the leaf. Right, so that's one way of doing it. In this case, I like just using the magic wand sample, and if we put our tolerance to 0 tolerance, we're going to zoom in so you can see what this actually means. If I select, say, this green pixel area, right, the 0 tolerance essentially means it's only going to select a certain pixels within that exact color, right? Whereas if we bring this up to 5, you can think of it as plus or minus 5 different greens. So now if we click in the same spot, we get more greens down here selected. So a couple lighter ones, a couple darker medium ones. Right, so if we do something like, say, 24, click the same pixel, we get even more here, but it's refusing to select some of the lighter greens or some of these other darker green areas that aren't connected to it. So you can just set that up to 32, and that should be the default depending on who's maybe used your computer before you. But we'll click on the white so we can get this nice white edge selection, and you want it to kind of get as close as you can to the leaf. And one thing that I like to do is I'll go up to select, modify our select, and I'm going to expand it by, say, 1 pixel, and that's going to bring it in 1 pixel. So that's looking pretty good. Now currently we have, if you look at the dancing ants at the top here, right, we have the white selected. We need to select the leaf. So we're going to go select, inverse, or Control-Shift-I. So now our leaf is selected. You're going to select Refine Edge. It's going to give us a nice little pop-up here. You've got a couple things here that you can view it. You can view it by marching ants, right? You could view this by overlay, which puts a red. On black puts black in the background. You got on white, which puts white in the background, black and white. There's what we're going to be doing with the alpha. We've got on layer, so if you had additional layer like a brick wall behind it, you would see the brick wall. And then you've got reveal the layer, the original layer, right? So let's do black and white just so we can take a peek here. So if you look at the magic wand selection, I mean, that looks like dog poop, right? We've got jagged, rough edges here, and we want to smooth that out. So what we're going to do is Smart Radius, and you're going to bring this out. Now what this does is it kind of predicts what the edge is like. Now the downside of Smart Radius is if you're not careful, you can get too much blurring on the edge. So if we bring this out, right, you start to get this fading out. Right, that's going to show up in 3D and not look so good. So I'm thinking maybe I like that 0.7. That looked pretty good. Then we have smoothing, feather, and contrast, which really is a case-by-case scenario. I don't use these a whole lot. Right, smoothing kind of blends the edges. Feather will make it kind of transparent, which we don't want to do at all for this. Contrast brings up the contrast. That's going to pixelate the edges. So we don't want that. Shift edge. Let's go back to our on black. So you see, we've got a nice edge here compared to doing that tight, rough edge there. When we do the 0.7 radius, it looks nice and clean there. So a shift edge, what this is going to do is we're just going to bring the edge in, and you can see how it jumped. In fact, I can zoom in. So there it is there, but if we bring it in, shift that edge in, and generally use the space bar for the hand tool, so space bar, or the zoom is control plus or minus, or you can select it right here and zoom in and out. Right. So you want to be careful though with getting too much blur on the edges though from the radius. So just watch out, because when you get to doing a different leaf after this, you're going to have to watch those settings. So, and then decontaminate colors. For this particular picture, it's not going to be as helpful, but if the area around the leaf would have been like a blue, like from a blue sky, or red, or orange, you would want to do decontaminate to try to have the computer calculate and get rid of any kind of orange lines, right? So we don't really need that for this, but we're going to do a new layer with mask, and click OK. Voila, there's our mask. Now, it deselected, so we need to reselect our leaf. So there's two different thumbnails here. There's a layer thumbnail and there's a mask thumbnail. So this mask thumbnail, you want to control click, and that's going to select your leaf, right? You're going to go to channels. Now, this is your mask here, and that's fine, that'll be there. And then you're going to click this button, which is Save Selection as Channel. So if we brought this in a little bit, you can see Save Selection as Channel. Right, so then we get our alpha. If we turn off RGB, here's what our alpha looks like. So I might actually need to clean this up, right? That's kind of looking a little jaggedy, right? Some areas it's not so bad. So we're going to leave that there. Turn on RGB, turn the alpha off, right? So now we've got our leaf just like this. Now it is ready for 3D. So you're going to go File, Save As, and you're going to name this bay leaf underscore your last name, and you're going to change this to a targa. Right. The reason why we're doing a targa is that targa is actually going to save that alpha. A JPEG will not. So we want to keep that alpha, right? So we'll go ahead and save that to our desktop. You're going to do 32 bits a pixel, because if you compress it, it's not going to show up correctly. So we need it 32 bits. And then we'll hit OK. We'll pull up our 3D project here. And what we're going to do here is, I like to do this in the front view. I'm going to go to plane, drag out a plane here. Go to modify. I'm going to call this bay leaf. And I'm going to do this 10 by 10. We'll do 5 by 2. And uncheck real world map size. And we can drag this down. Just click this little button here. And we can line it up with our grid. We got our leaf getting set up here. So now we need to assign the material and that texture. So we're going to open the material editor. M for material editor. you're going to drag out a standard. Alright, so now that we've got our material, I just need to go to my desktop and grab the bay leaf Targa file. I'm going to drag that right onto here. And you're going to plug this into the diffuse and to the opacity. We're going to double click our material 25 and we're going to rename that material underscore leaf. And then for this one, I'm going to double click it and put image underscore bay leaf. And then we need to have the plane selected, and then you're going to hit these two buttons, assign material to selection and show material in viewport, right? Or you could also do it through the right click menu, right? Assign material and show shaded. So now that we have that, this is what you'll get. It looks just like this. So, and because of the opacity map, it's kind of slightly transparent. You can kind of see through the grid, right? So we need to change the settings. So you're going to double click your image. That'll bring up your bitmap parameters here. You are going to change the mono channel output to alpha. You're going to change the alpha source, make sure it's set to image alpha. And then we are going to uncheck pre-multiplied alpha. So now we get a nice, clean leaf. Right. And so at this point, I'm going to pull Photoshop back up, and I'm going to open up the actual project leaf. It's just a leaf.jpg, and this is a red background. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, right? This one is going to be a little bit more picky because you're going to have to clean this up. And I'm going to leave that up to you. How do you want to do that? But in my case, you might check all the edges, hold shift, and get those edges where the red are. Because there's areas of the leaf that it doesn't select all the red for you. So you have to go back in here and clean that up. So we're going to, we'll leave it right just where it is. And we're going to go ahead, and we already had our tolerance set, so we're going to do refine edge. Whoops, I skipped a step. Select invert, so we have the leaf selected. Then we'll do refine edge. On black is fine. So now you see how we got that red, whereas when we do decontaminate, see how it kind of takes that red and it makes it gray. So that's much better right there for clearing that out. What we're going to do is turn Smart Radius on first. We're going to do like maybe 0.1 or 0.2. And then we're also going to shift the edge just a little bit in. Because even though we're decontaminating, I want to bring that edge in. Then we'll decontaminate. And let's just look at this on the black and white. Okay, so it looks pretty clean. Right, you want to check it, zoom out, check all your different pieces, make sure it did pretty good. It's getting a little faded there. That might show up in 3D as white, but I think we're cutting it close. So we'll go ahead and click OK. Right, control click the layer mask, go to channels, create a new alpha, voila. Then we're going to go control shift save. And this one you are going to turn in. This is your proof. The proof in the pudding. So leaf underscore last name and a Targa file, right? So you'll save that, 32 bits, voila. We can go find that on my desktop. We're going to go back to 3ds Max here. And so the neat thing about this is I can actually drag on my new leaf, plug it in to these channels, and this time I'm going to call this image underscore leaf. I don't even know what type of leaf this is, but we're just going to call it leaf. We'll double click the leaf, and we got to make sure that the settings are changed. So we're going to go turn off alpha and turn off pre-multiplied alpha. So we get a nice, clear leaf showing up in our description. We can close that out. We're pretty much done with that. Now for part 3. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and throw on an edit poly. And we're going to go down to Vertex Mode. Actually, before we do that, what we want to do is go to Edit Geometry and Preserve UVs. Right. This allows us to actually move the points. So I'm going to go here and maximize this view. Alright, so in Vertex Mode here, you can also find that underneath Selection. It's the same thing, so you can turn it on and off. There's our vertex or point mode. I'm going to move these points and line them up. You can drag select to move whole points over. Right. Whoops. Let's cancel Control-Z that. So you can also grab 3 and just, whoops, and scale them. Makes it slightly easier for doing it uniformly, although our leaf isn't perfectly symmetrical, so it's not like it really matters a whole lot. So because we're in the front view, we're not going to really mess this up. If you were in perspective, you'd have to be extra careful. Let's see here. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to kind of get the shape of the leaf. And the reason behind this is so that we can bend it and it just makes more sense that way. Keep hitting F. You got to be careful. If you go up, it'll cut off your picture, so we just want to end it right there. This is going to be our bottom. And looks like I might have needed to do 6 for this one. Didn't like that. So when you want to add in, what we can do is select across these 3 edges. We'll go down to our Edit Edges, and you'll do Connect, just one connect, and then hit the checkbox. And now we just added an extra line. We'll go back to our Vertex Mode, and now we can then pull this back out so that we get our leaf. You don't want any of the leaf parts chopped off. I guess that one's just going to be picky, so we'll just leave it there for now. Alright, so then we got the shape of our leaf. We can go back to our 4 views, Alt-W, or you can also hit the maximize, minimize back and forth. So we got our leaf here. The other thing that we're going to want to do is go to the hierarchy, effect pivot only, and we're going to drag the pivot down to the center, and I use kind of all 3 views, but we want to put this right where the center of our stem is at the bottom. And then you have to turn effect pivot off because that's like a mode. Turn that off. So we got our pivot down there. And this is going to help us with our modify when we get to rotating it so that it rotates from the pivot so we can make an actual plant. So we've got that there. We can also turn rotate snapping on. We're going to throw on another modifier called bend. And we'll bend it a little bit, and then the direction, let's do 90 degrees. Alright, so you're going to change the bend axis to Y, and then we can adjust the angle. And the direction is 90 degrees, so 90 degrees is going that way on the Y-axis. So, you know, if we changed it to negative 90 or almost 360, it would be the opposite side. Whoops. And we can bend it. Well, maybe just bend it a little bit. That's good. And Then we can just go to our rotate tool, and we can rotate that forward. Now, to duplicate this leaf, you hold Shift, and then you're going to highlight this axis here, holding Shift and rotate it. Do 90 degrees or so. You're going to do a copy, and then we'll do another copy. And holding Shift, another copy. So, skinnier leaf might look a little bit better. You could duplicate these, you could bend them a little bit more. You could even throw on another bend and bend it inward or outward. Right, we could squeeze it together, change the direction, kind of make them each leaf a little bit different. Could also do one of the other axes to offset them a little bit, do more of a bend, right, and you create some variation in your plant. So for the 3D file, you can just save that on your personal drive and just turn in the targa for your leaf. That way I can check the alpha on that.